Good evening. We're going to call the meeting to order at 6:04 for the special meeting on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to follow the Pledge of Allegiance with a moment of silence. I'm going to have Superintendent Benigni say a few words about our custodian, Rob Scapoletti, who passed away this week.
Rob Scapoletti has been a custodian in the Berlin Public Schools for the past 25 years. He was a current employee and passed away on August 23rd. Rob had a love for the Miami Dolphins, ultimate fighting, and spending time with his friends. He worked at Berlin High School here for almost 20 years and then at Hubbard as a custodian. Unfortunately, Rob lost his battle to COVID. We just met with Rob for negotiations. He was also vice president of the custodial union. So if we could have a moment of silence for Rob Scapoletti. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to continue on with our meeting so I have a few announcements to clarify some misconceptions. But first and foremost, what happened Monday night at our meeting was not acceptable and it was inappropriate. The business we do as a Board of Education is to support the students in Berlin. It is not political. We don't have to agree. People can disagree, but you can do it respectfully. I don't know how parents can confidently send their children to school tomorrow if we can't keep order in a Board of Education meeting with parents and adults. As we continue through tonight's meeting, you need to abide by the mask mandate, which is in fact an executive order, which is a law by Governor Lamont. So even when you come up to the microphone to speak, you have to keep your mask on. If you haven't signed up for Audience of Citizens, the sign up is over there. We're allowing everyone 2 minutes. And after we hear a number of people on one topic, we have the authority to move on. It's in our board handbook. After 3 people share on one topic, but we're gonna allow more. But once it gets too much, we do have the right to cut you off. So I just wanna set that out there beforehand. So I want to publicly acknowledge all faculty and staff for the extra work that has been done to make last school year a success, despite all the obstacles and challenges that they had to overcome to make sure the students were learning. Faculty and staff just completed their 3rd day today, and tomorrow they open the doors. Our goal is to keep schools safe and make sure children are learning. We want to provide our students with the best possible education, so good luck, enjoy your first day of school, and we wish you the absolute best. A few other announcements. So in regards to emailing the Board of Education and reading those emails off, during COVID we started doing that because we couldn't meet in person, and then we pulled it back because we can obviously have people here as long as they abide by the mandates. So I just wanted to let you know that. There's been questions raised about critical race theory. I would like to clarify that there is no critical race theory in our curriculum, nor has it ever been. If you would like to look at our curriculum, you can access it on the Berlin Public Schools website. Click on Parents, and then Atlas Family Access. Our curriculum has been posted for over 10 years. So we're not hiding anything, and there is no critical race theory. In terms of the Social Justice and Equity Committee, that is an agenda item this evening, and I want to make it clear that this is an advisory committee. There have been no changes due to the curriculum because of the committee, and we are going to address the committee later on. At the last meeting, our last agenda item was about a textbook adoption called One for the Murphys. This book we had adopted as our last item, like I said. This book had nothing to do with the Social Justice and Equity Committee. If you Google the name of it, you'll see that. It's actually about a child in foster care. You can look it up on Amazon. It's called One for the Murphys, and you can buy it if you're interested. So in regards to the executive orders, as a Board of Education, we are obligated to follow the law. When we were sworn in, everyone at this table, other than the superintendent, we took an oath to do the following. And Kate Wall sent me this directly. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully discharge, according to law, your duties as as a member of the Board of Education for the town of Berlin to the best of your ability, so help you God? So though people are not in favor of 13A that was put into place on August 5th, which was not in place at our last meeting, that's why there was some leniency with masks, we have to abide by that because we took an oath to do so. All the other elected officials in our town also took a very similar oath to faithfully abide by the laws. So also, one other point of clarification, on August 9th, the town manager sent out correspondence requiring masks in town buildings. I have the email, and I don't have another documentation showing that that had changed. So we are in compliance with the law as well as our town manager. So I wanted to set that out there before we continue on with our meeting. So now we are going to move to committee reports. Do any committees have anything to report?
Julia? Yes. Actually, two things. We had a Finance and Operations Committee meeting last Thursday. We discussed, continued to discuss project funding as it related to the ESSER grant and some of the other federal grant monies that we have received. There is a wealth of paperwork that Brian's office is working through to process all of that and making sure everything is on track for timely implementation. We're doing a great job. We've been very fortunate to get close to $1 million in some of the funds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in other funds of federal and state grant money to work on projects that we've been wanting to do for a long time. So congratulations to everybody, Brian, in your office for helping out with getting that accomplished and moving forward. Still a lot more work to do with it because since it is federal and state dollars, there's a lot of regulations to it. So as more information presents, we will talk on that some more. We also talked about the Central Connecticut Transition Academy, which is the postgraduate services that we provide to special education children until the age of 23. That happens at our Main Street location, the YMCA, former YMCA building, and continuing to evolve that. It's growing into a relationship with Cromwell now, which is fantastic. So that's doing very well, and the staff over there is excited about the progress on that. So that was Finance and Operations. On Monday, just a couple of days ago, we had an ad hoc committee meeting to talk about a couple of new policies. As a result of the federal money that we have gotten, there have been a lot of recommendations from various federal and state organizations that boards of education have policies in place as to how to properly handle that money, manage that money, account for that money, et cetera. So we had a first reading of those policies. Those policies are available to all of us in Schoology for review. If you have any comments, please share them with either myself or Julia or Brian, and we'll be taking those up at our next meeting for adoption.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Thank you. Correspondence to the board?
Yes, I have one correspondence to the board. Dear Berlin Board of Education and staff, we appreciate the kind thoughts that prompted you to send such a lovely flower memory for my father and grandfather. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and beautiful expression of sympathy. Sincerely, to Salazar family.
Thank you. In addition to Brian's correspondence, I received emails from 12 teachers over the past few days after we ended our Monday's meeting. It's not an audience, a citizen. It was correspondence to the board thanking us for making school safety a priority. And I will just read their names out. I didn't get time to respond to all, but Amanda Zybrand, Danielle McCorkle, Alexandra Denny, James Zelonsky, sorry if I'm messing up the names, Lisa Orabi, Nadia, oh, that's not actually, Roxana Lopez, Lorianne St. Jar, Gabrielle Garncars, Graham Seacamp, Jane Poncos, and Andrea Rodrigue. So sorry if I said your name wrong, but thank you so much for your emails, and those were thanking the Board of Education for their continued support in school safety. Any other correspondence to the board? Okay, so we are going to move on to the audience of citizen portion of our Board of Education meeting. While we are holding this part of the meeting, we can in fact end it at any time. I hope we don't have to do that because I think it's important that we hear all the different voices, whether people agree or disagree. This is a unique aspect of our board is we value different voices, and we haven't shut anyone down up to this point. So I'm going to just read some of our board policy 9035 before I begin, just to make sure we have clear expectations. The public comment or audience of citizen portion of the meeting is an opportunity for board members to hear from the public. It is not an opportunity for board members to engage in discussion or debate with members of the public. Accordingly, board members will not comment or respond to public comments during audience of citizens. This portion of the meeting needs to be respectful. No inappropriate or disrespectful conduct shall be permitted in any Board of Education meeting. Persistence in such conduct shall be grounds for summary termination by the president of that individual's privilege of address, and if disruptive behavior continues, removal from the meeting. We can end this portion of the meeting at any time. All speakers must identify themselves by name and address, and please make sure you keep your mask on. I will grab the list for the audience of citizens. You have another one, right?
The other sheet, no entries on that sheet.
Okay, I will put a blank piece of paper up if anyone.
I'll bring the other one over.
Okay, thank you. So I will call you up one at a time. You have 2 minutes. Once the 2 minutes is up, the microphone turns off. So I know if what you're saying is really important, we do value that. Just try and make sure you do it in the 2 minutes. We're going to start out with, and while this is happening, if you would like to sign up, the sign up is still over there. We do want to hear from people. Our first speaker is Joanne Angelico Stetson.
Joanne Angelico Stetson, 188 Stony Mill Lane, and I'm here to speak about the Equity and Social Justice Committee. I'm the parent of 3 adult children who I raised here and were educated through the Berlin Public School System. I've served alongside some of you in my capacities as a Board of Ed member, Economic Development Commissioner, and Town Councilor. We don't serve in these roles for compensation or accolades. We do so because we care. We care about all members of this community, regardless of their race, gender identity, heritage, religion, or political affiliation. When the formation of the ESJ committee was made public and came to my attention, I asked to be a participant in my continued efforts to advocate for those who are underrepresented, marginalized, and quite frankly, blatantly discriminated against, something unfortunately that is not unusual to this town. Many of us realized from this committee's inception that the work would sometimes be uncomfortable and difficult. I can speak for myself when I tell you that I've learned a great deal about my own unconscious inherent racism and implicit bias, which, by the way, we all possess to some extent. Certainly it makes some of us feel vulnerable, but that's where the honesty and genuineness of this work shines through. Despite our vulnerability and discomfort, we realize how crucial it is that we continue and that we have deeply transparent conversations and respectful discourse so that we can accomplish our goals and make transformations despite that controversy that surrounds it. The sad reality is that the work of this nature is needed. I mean, we don't want to have to do it, and I wish it wasn't necessary, but it certainly is. I'm trying to cut this short. I'm grateful, however, that it's allowed me the opportunity to work along like-minded individuals who just simply want nothing more to make positive and humane change for our children and hopefully eventually provide all our children a more inclusive and diverse curriculum and improved teaching practices through more equity.
It is a little awkward cutting people off, so I do apologize, but it's part of the rules. Sarah Patel.
My name is Sarah Patel. I live at 65 Sabona Road. I would like to begin by thanking the Board of Education for their tireless work on behalf of the children of Berlin and all of the students who attend the 5 great schools within our district. I'm here tonight to speak about the amazing work of our Equity and Social Justice Committee. I am so proud of the Berlin BOE, our administrators, and our teachers for recognizing that there is important work that needs to be done and for making an actionable plan to ensure that true equity is reached within the Berlin Public Schools. You might have guessed when I introduced myself that my family is biracial. My husband is American, but to be specific, he is first-generation Indian American, meaning that his heritage and ancestry comes from the country of India. We have 2 beautiful mixed children. My oldest child began school in Berlin at the age of 5. Not even 1 month into his school experience, he experienced his first brush with racism. Entering grade 5 tomorrow, he has experienced racism at least once every year since he began his school. For me, joining this committee is the continuation of a personal journey regarding racism, bias, and becoming an anti-racist. This journey is difficult and never ending. It started with me saying things like, I'm not a racist, I don't see color, but that is not enough. This committee answers a call. It answers a call to be something, anything, everything that is within my power to end systemic racism and to make life better for my children and for all children. How can we say no to our neighbors, friends, fellow citizens, and those of color who are asking for our help? We can't say no. I will leave you with one thing. We often hear that America is a melting pot. Let's destroy that construct. Let's think of it as a fruit salad, something vibrant with every bite.
Thank you. Okay, our next is Chris Barlow and Twanette Price, I believe. Is that what it says? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Barlow. My family and I purchased a home on Overhill Drive in 2019. We've been enjoying Berlin very much and are happy to call it home. We frequently take walks around town and happen to notice a large stuffed black-faced doll sitting in a lawn chair on Farmington Avenue near Walgreens last October. The sign on its lap said, "Join Berlin Upbeat, Integrity, Leadership, and Service." As an African-American man, I did a double take and couldn't believe in 2020 that I'd see something like this in plain sight. In a town close that I choose to call home, sponsored by an organization run by the Berlin Public School System, encouraging people to join it. I wondered if Black history or the struggle for social justice has been part of the curriculum here in Berlin schools. We live in polarizing times, and with the national attention on systematic racism and police brutality in the wake of the tragic deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others, I would have hoped that at least someone in leadership role for the organization that touts integrity, leadership, and service would have reviewed the display and used it as a teachable moment to discuss racism and insensitivity in our society. Images like the figure sitting in the chair are called gollywogs. Civil rights organizations led campaigns and white civic and public leaders eventually joined the effort to ban the offensive characters in the 1960s. My 13-year-old son is a student attending McGee School, and I worry about what bias or potential racism he may encounter. I also worry about many of the other Black and minority students that are in Berlin Upbeat as well. And I also wanted to know what the district is doing to incorporate the state's new curriculum requiring Black and Latino studies. My family has a long history here in Connecticut. My cousin, the Honorable Bruce Barlow Jr., became Connecticut's first Black judge in 1957, and 9 years later became my first Black senator. He was one of the many family elders who left segregated Georgia 100 years ago for a better life in Connecticut. Bruce Barlow Way is a street in Hartford that bears his name. I wrote a letter to the superintendent, Benigni, last October and included a few resources and books to educate the Berlin Public Schools.
All right, time is up, thank you. Dr. Sassen?
I'd like to use the next 30 seconds of her time to just finish what I was reading.
May I just ask for your address just for the record?
Sure, it's 15 Overhill Drive.
Okay,
Overhill.
yep, you can do that because you're two separate people. Go ahead.
Okay. I wrote a letter last year to Superintendent Benigni which included a few resources and books to educate the Berlin public school system about racism and insensitivity. And local Connecticut author also gave a talk about the subject at the Berlin Public Library last fall. I was thankful to speak to the superintendent on the phone and learn that the display was immediately removed after a conversation. And I was honored to receive an invite to join the Social Justice and Equity Committee after writing my letter, and I'm proud of the work that we're doing. While getting to know the concerned neighbors in this group, I learned that I was not the only one who witnessed a racially insensitive event in town, and I'm proud to share my story and my efforts making Berlin a better community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Evalisa Mayette. Yes.
I'm sorry, if it'd be possible, and I don't know the protocol,
Oh.
but if we could
Could you just bring that up to the
either
board for
let the
them to
board
see?
look at it, or if we could take a picture of it so that we can review it later, but I think we all would like to see what was presented.
All right, Evalisa, just make sure you state your address. Thanks.
Good evening. Evalisa Mayette, 178 Lower Lane. I am an English teacher here at Berlin High School, and I'm also the Teachers Association president. I'm going to start by explaining that I was born and raised in Berlin, and our children are BHS graduates. I started coaching here 35 years ago and started teaching here 17 years ago. I don't mention these things because I feel that I am more important or my opinion is more valid than others. I bring this up because I hope it speaks to my commitment to Berlin, and specifically to our schools and students. It's a pretty great district. Berlin is a fantastic place for kids to get their education. We have awesome people here educating and taking care of our children, and we have awesome kids and families. Our students are truly great, and our families are equally so. They care about their children's education, and they help in any way they can. We really couldn't ask for more. This last school year may have easily been the hardest year ever, but we rolled up our sleeves and did whatever it took to stay open and, most importantly, take care of our students. Our superintendent and assistant superintendent were amazing all along, working to ensure we could continue moving forward seamlessly. There are so many districts who couldn't do this, having to close whole classrooms or buildings for outbreaks. And throughout last year, we completely appreciated the support of the Board of Education in making decisions that also helped us stay open and take care of our kids. At the July Board of Ed meeting, Erin McGurk, our assistant superintendent, presented a year's worth of work, and when she was done, I did not hear anything about how lucky Berlin is to have this work going on. No questions regarding specifics or asking for clarification. 60-plus people, parents, community members, staff, and students volunteered their time to meet every month all year long to talk and reflect and work. After Erin's presentation, what I instead witnessed was a lot of questioning of the relevance of this committee and how it should operate. I have no issue with the questioning of its operation. That's your job. Ultimately, what I want people to realize is please forget the title of the committee. It's not just about race. It's about equity in all ways.
Stop.
I'm going to leave this with you guys because I would like you to take the time.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had to cut you off. The next person is Mary Catherine LaRose.
Afraid to touch it. Mary Catherine LaRose, 26 Woodruff Lane, Kensington. I'm going to go back to the events of Monday night, and I disagree with your characterization of the way the non-meeting went. I think that when you have parents who are frightened and angry, and they're so concerned about their children, things will get emotional and will get passionate. And if you think that was personal to you, I disagree. I do not think it was personal to you. It was personal to them because their children are going to have to come to school in a day or so and wear a mask, and they probably never did last year, especially if they were remote. Now there's no remote option, and this is being forced on them, and there was a lot of anger and resentment, obviously. Just to clarify, an emergency order, executive order, is not a law. It's an executive order, but it's not a law because it wasn't passed by the legislature. I totally resent the governor taking these actions. I think it's way above his authority. It shouldn't be allowed. I believe it's unconstitutional, but that's my belief, and maybe it'll make its way through the courts. I also think there has to be a change in Hartford where the legislature stopped rubber stamping everything he does. But that allowed you to kind of get off the hook and say, well, our hands are tied, we have to do this. So all I'm asking is when those kids come, those teachers better be very kind and soft with those kids that never, excuse me, boy. With those children that never wore a mask before, that were homeschooled or remote learning, kids with special needs. And just so you know, I'm a teacher, have been a teacher my entire life. And I saw with my own eyes last year, not in Berlin, but I don't believe Berlin's any different than anywhere else, teachers who very authoritatively were coming down on kids because their masks slipped. And you just need to be
Time is up. So Steve Jenkins, you're an attorney. Just can you briefly clarify the executive order and it being allowed? This is not going to be a back and forth with the audience. I'm just curious. Can you please do that for me?
Just to clarify, an executive order has the full weight and authority of the law. And this particular executive order was passed after the legislative session granted the governor the authority to continue monitoring and administrating over the COVID. Now, his powers expire on September 30th, and it'll be up to the legislative folks if they're going to grant an extension on that. But it has the full weight and authority of law.
Okay, thank you. So when we were sworn in, we agreed to abide by the law. Steve, could you just quickly state your credentials for the audience?
I've been an attorney here, licensed in Connecticut for over 20 years. I have 4 law degrees. I practiced in a law firm setting. I currently practice in a private setting, and I have six or so years in the U.S. Air Force.
Thank you. All right. So if anyone else wants to sign up, the sign up is over there. Could you actually put the pens on there for me? The next person is Jonathan Sweet. If you could come to the microphone and state your address, please.
I'll make this quick. Jonathan Sweet, 516 Weathersfield Road. I just want to say, and I think there's a lot of parents who don't come to these meetings and are not vocal because we support the science, we support masking, and I want my kids to be safe, and regardless of what goes on, there are a lot of people who support the board and keeping everyone safe. So I just wanted to say that.
All right, Tracy Mata, if you could come on up and state your address.
Hi, I'm Tracy Mata, 69 Eastbrook Terrace, and what I would like to say is I raise significant concerns both medically and legally of the current mask policy in place. It's a myth that masks prevent viruses from spreading. The overall evidence is clear. Standard cloth and surgical masks offer next to no protection against virus-sized particles or small aerosols. The size of the virus particle is much too small to be stopped by a surgical mask, cloth, or bandana. Wearing a mask to prevent catching SARS-CoV-2, a similarly sized influenza, is like throwing sand at a chain link fence. It doesn't work. All particles mandating the use of face masks are not only willfully ignoring established science, but engaging in what amounts to a whole school clinical experimental trial. The conclusion is reached by the fact that face mask use in COVID-19 incidents are being reported in scientific opinion pieces promoted by the CDC and others. The fact is, after reviewing all of the studies worldwide, CDC found no reduction in viral transmission with the use of face masks. Additionally, children have been repeatedly shown not to be drivers of the contagion. It is well accepted that children have statistically zero chance of dying from COVID. The CDC shows that K through 12 mortality rate from or with COVID is 0.0003. Regardless of the lack of safety and efficacy behind the decision to require a child to wear a mask, it is illegal to mandate EUA-approved investigational medical therapies without informed consent. Mask use for viral transmission prevention is authorized for emergency use only. Emergency use authorization by the FDA means the products are investigational and experimental only. The statute granted the FDA the power to authorize a medical product of emergency use requires that the person being administered the unapproved product be advised of his or her rights to refuse administration of the product. This statute further recognizes the well-settled doctrine that medical experiments or clinical research may not be performed on human subjects without the express informed consent of the individual receiving treatment.
Thank you for
The right to
sharing.
avoid the imposition of human
Thank you.
experiments.
I know I hate cutting people off, I'm sorry. All right, that's the worst part of the job is cutting people off right now, yes.
I just want to, just a point of clarification on your comment to me last.
Okay,
I sit on the board in my personal capacity, not as a capacity of a lawyer, and I just want to make sure that that comes across. After I answered Julia's question, Madam Chairwoman's question, I reflected on it, and I just want to have the superintendent state that we have consulted board counsel through Shipman and Goodwin. So, Mr. Benigni, I'm sorry, Superintendent Benigni.
thank you for that point of clarification, that makes sense.
Mention that.
Do you have anything?
Just as a point of clarification, our counsel is Shipman and Goodwin Law Firm in Hartford, Connecticut. We did consult them regarding, obviously, the executive order, and their position was that executive order carries all the weight of law, if not more. So that was what our counsel, who we are contracted with, which was board approved to use as our counsel.
Thank you. All right, the next person is Peter Zarabozo. I think I said it right? Okay, thanks.
My name is Peter Zarabozo. I live at 158 Elwood. I'm reading a missive on behalf of my wife, Kristen, who couldn't be here tonight. Good evening. I want to take this moment to thank the BOE for establishing the Diversity and Social Equity Committee here in town. This is a topic that is important to us because through my own experiences in education, I've come to see that we do live in a place with a system that may not treat all people in an equitable way. I'd like my children to grow up in a world that only continues to get better. I want them in a school system that values them and all their classmates, giving access and equitable treatment to all. I'm excited by the work the committee has been doing so far and to be among such passionate and driven people who push me to be a better person in turn. I look forward to our continued participation and collaboration with this board and the community. Thank you again for establishing the committee and your continued support.
All right, so the sign up is over there. We're coming up to our last person, so if you do want to get your last few words in, the sign up is up there. The last person on my list is Jesse Eid, E-D-E maybe? Sorry. Eid.
Jesse Eady, 72 Worthington Point Road in Berlin. I'm part of the equity group, and I just wanted to say, as we witnessed tonight, there's a lot of different opinions amongst all of us. Berlin is predominantly white, and this committee helps us kind of pay attention to other opinions that aren't fully represented here in Connecticut or in Berlin. And I really just want to say thank you. Thank you for supporting us. Keep it going, and we'll do what we can to make sure that it fits in legally, because I know there's been a lot of tension with that question. And then also I'd like to say that my children are really looking forward to going to school, and they're excited. So, thank you. Yeah.
Would anyone else like to come up to the microphone? Just sign up first. We'll give it probably just a few more minutes, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. So, all right, go ahead. You can, if you just signed up, you can go speak now. Oh, yeah, you're the next person.
Jessica Patra, 420 Lower Lane. So I guess you guys don't answer questions, and I had a few questions. So I'm just gonna throw them out there. Maybe eventually I'll get some answers. So last year when COVID was not affecting the children, our kids had plexiglass barriers. They had all their specials in the room. They were not allowed to have lunch in the cafeteria. This year, apparently, the Delta variant is really affecting the children. And don't get me wrong, I'm completely thankful. However, the kids do not have the plexiglass barriers. They are attending specials out of the room. They are attending lunch in the cafeteria. Again, I'm super thankful because I don't think it's fair that they were all trapped in the classroom, but I'm not understanding. If the Delta variant is affecting the kids, why are they allowed to move around and be with all of these other children, and all of the safety precautions that were taken last year are now no longer in place? And also, from my understanding, that the cafeteria in this high school, there's 125 unmasked kids. So between lunch last year in the classroom and the lunchroom here, everybody's already at risk for COVID. So I don't understand why we're continuing with the masks. I don't know if you can answer that now, or maybe later I can get an answer.
Later in our agenda, we have the reopening, or?
I can gladly answer it very briefly. Last year, we followed the CDC guidelines, and we took on not only what the requirements, we also took on any recommendations that were there. The mitigation strategies for this year, despite the variant, are not the same from the CDC. So any of the things that we're putting in place or we're eliminating from last year were based on the CDC recommendations and the Connecticut State Department of Ed. So when you see things loosened up, such as having the students be in the same classroom for the entire day, doing all their specials there, that's no longer recommended. The lunchroom and things, we still have some dividers that will be in lunchrooms and things, but they recommended going back to the lunchroom. So we're following what the medical experts are telling us. So that's why things have changed.
That literally makes no sense. And also, you said that you served our United States military for 6 years, and you still have no respect for our flag, so that's great.
Thank you. Could you say your address one more time? We can find it. We'll have Debbie find it. It's not. All right. The next person is Sam Lamaglio. If you could come on up and state your address, and you have 2 minutes.
Sam Lamaglio, 78 Hickory Road, Berlin, Connecticut. I came here tonight to thank the Board of Education. We worked very closely as chairman with the Board of Education. I worked with the president, with Mr. Tenza, with Mr. Rorian, and the superintendent. We've done a lot of great things together for the past 4 years. We funded an affordable education, 3% increase. We've done the 1% account. We've done the blast classroom. We've done a few other things. We're very fortunate to have an educational system that we have. But in order to have a quality educational system, we've got to work together, and it ties in with our economic development. If you don't have a quality education, our economic development won't succeed. And I've been saying this for the past 4 years. There's other people may disagree with me, but education in this community has been a good educational system, and that's why we're going to increase our businesses in the next few years. I just want to thank you because my sons came through the system. They went to college, they got their MBAs, they got their Masters of Accountant. It started here at Berlin High School. We've got a lot of things to be proud of. And so whatever happened on Monday, let's forget about it. Let's move towards the future, and let's get this education back on track again for the next 4 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Rachelchette. State your address.
Rachelchette, 61 Ellsworth Boulevard. Really want to talk on 2 pieces tonight. The first is to thank the board for supporting the Social Justice and Equity Committee, and to those members who are here tonight, to thank you for the work you're doing. For those in the audience, that when they hear stories of discrimination and say things like, "That's life," that's why we need a Social Justice and Equity Committee in Berlin. It's important. Implicit bias implicit bias does not mean that you didn't have a hard life, that you didn't struggle. It just means we all have implicit bias towards certain people, and once we recognize that, we can make a change for a positive outcome. But until we recognize it, it won't happen. The second thing I want to say is in regards to masking and those who are here tonight who spoke about children not being being affected by COVID. Children are not the only people in the building. There are teachers, there are custodians that we just heard. There are children, elderly, grandparents that those children can bring the disease home to. So even if you don't believe, which is false science, that children aren't susceptible, they're not the only ones here. So I applaud you all for enforcing the mask mandate. Thank you.
We're going to close this portion of the meeting. We don't have anyone else that has signed up, but I just want to thank everyone who came out and respectfully voiced their opinions. Our Board of Education does want to hear all different sides. We don't want to hear just one side. I think it's important that if you have something, you do bring it to us. So if something does come to a vote, we've heard from the, members of our Berlin community, and that's one thing that we've always welcomed here. So thank you. We are moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second? So the motion by Mark, the second by Jamie. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. Moving on to new business. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Benigni to discuss the reopening of school.
Sure, the readiness of school. We are ready to open school tomorrow to our student. We had various programs this week and last week. Last week we had our new teachers day, which is orientation for new teachers. We had our administrative retreat for 2 days. Today we had an elementary welcome. We had a freshman welcome at the high school. The buildings as such, we did not have as many projects this year in the summer. Some of the projects that we hope to complete are not in a position that we would have hoped for. And really the reason why is lack of supplies, lack of manpower, not school manpower, but the outside contractors and things. So we have a Griswold music room that will be happening sometime during the school year, unfortunately not for the start of the year. If you drove by Willard, you'll see that the concrete work was getting wrapped up this afternoon at 5 o'clock. The rain on Monday didn't help, but there's new concrete outside at Willard. A few other projects that still need to be done around the district. Some cubbies and some work needs to be done at Hubbard for the students to hang their jackets and things. So there's various projects still lingering. Typically we'd have those done in the summer, but we weren't able to. But as far as staffing goes, and the readiness of staff and all of the PPE and the various schedules and things, we are in a great position to open school tomorrow. We are excited to welcome students back. We had a great convocation on Monday, talking about the pandemic and things changing under the advice of the Central Connecticut Health District. I'm on with the Central Health District as well as Rocky Hill, Weathersfield, and Newington with the superintendent of that school. We were going to have a convocation in this very room, as we typically would do with all staff being here, and it was recommended that we not. So we had just the high school staff for social distancing. Everyone was masked, and then we had each building have their convocation. We had it streamed to each building where their staff would meet. So we're constantly taking the advice of the State Department of Education, the Health District, and moving forward. But as far as being ready and prepared with classrooms and shiny floors and buildings being immaculate, we are ready for students tomorrow. We are eager to greet them. We are still as excited. Would we like to be greeting them without masks in a different place? Absolutely. But to be able to greet them back in school with having them change classes, not be in the same classroom all day, going to the lunchroom, even if there are some shields there, it's a lot better place than where we were last year. And the hope is that it only improves from here. So thank you for being here tonight. And if there's anything that with the students, when they come home, things that you're not sure about, I encourage you to contact the building administration or contact my office or me, and we'll make sure we get back to you. But we are eagerly await the arrival of the students tomorrow. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Julia?
Yes.
I don't know where the appropriate point for what I'd like to say is in the meeting, so I think this is one of them. I would like to recognize the hard work of the Berlin Public Works folks. I was out there, unfortunately, on a COVID restriction, just getting fresh air, and I watched and witnessed the efforts that they made and the new pavement that went down and all the outside new stuff that's out there at Willard for them with the hopscotch and the Foursquare and the new kickball field on the new pavement and the basketball courts and you know, all the work they did with the mulch on the playscapes. So to see what they did through the heat and the weather and the effort they put in, it was truly impressive, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that. So I appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you. Would any other board members like to comment on the superintendent's readiness for the opening of school tomorrow? All right, well, we're excited to open the doors for another school year. We are going to move on to the facilities-related update. Mr. Cugno?
Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience. I've been asked by the superintendent to give an update on some of the facilities projects that we have planned, funded, and going forward with. There was already some comments made on some of them, and I'm pretty excited to hear that everybody else is excited about them, because we think we've done a very good job with the town, in coordination with the town and public works staff and the principals to get these projects in line. It's sometimes very difficult to get the type of projects that we like funded, and we were successful this past year. The one comment that I'd like to also say is it has been, for the people that are in the construction industry, a very interesting year. But the good thing about these projects is they are all funded. Money is set aside. And I'll just take a couple minutes to do some notes, and I'll try not to repeat some of the things that were mentioned by the board members. Those of you that go to McGee, you know last year that we updated our entire auditorium. It looks tremendous now. Not that it was not always nice, but now it looks renovated because it is. It's got a lot of new equipment. It's really very, very proud to have that in our middle school. We also just recently replaced all the called Project Adventure, which is a very, very nice thing that McGee has for its students and for its PA classes. And you'll notice when you go in there the next time that we replaced all the ropes and the hanging items and the things that all the PE teachers want to use all the time. It's a great thing. That took a little while to do. We had to do some renovations, but it was nice. There's a lot of these projects that are funded, and the board knows we're funded by our operating account and put into the 2% account, the non-lapsing account of the town. The town is now in charge of those projects. We're very happy about that, and all of them are moving forward in some form or fashion. Very quickly, one that we've wanted for a long time, and a lot of people in the schools have been involved with, is the McGee Library Center lighting. We've got to a point now with having design done by JCJ Architecture and having a lot of work done by Danielle Salina, and in looking at what she wants into the library. And Lori Jerpin was very, very much involved in spending a lot of time with the architects and the to-be contractors to put things together. That project is being bid. It's a rather expensive project, but again, it's a big part of our facility over there. The bids originally came in a little higher than we expected and budgeted, but we're now back looking at how to do engineering on that and make sure they come into budget. And we hope that those things, that project will take off and be bid sometime in the spring. Everybody talked about the Willard. Willard looks great. I'll tell you, when I was driving here on the way, I looked at, they're out there working right now. It was promised that they would be done before the school year started. And guys like Steve Wood, who were involved with the town, did a tremendous job getting that put in place, especially in the way the construction industry is doing now. So it looks beautiful. I love the comments that were given. If you get a chance to go out and see it, it's a good-looking, modern facility, and around the side that has to do with basketball courts and doing all the stenciling on the paving. We're very, very proud of it. And also the sidewalks, yes, are being done, being completed right now as we speak. Just another one to mention to the board, the McGee rooftop units, which we funded last year and funded a little more this year, are planned to be done and bid and taken care of this next summer. That's the kind of project where you really don't do while the school is operating, but that is moving forward. The Hubbard storage units were mentioned. That's something that I know the the staff and the principal wanted it over there for a long while. We have money set aside to do that, and it's in design at the present time. There's also a design going on for a mental health suite at McGee, which hopefully will be funded by the ESSER grant that they were talking about earlier. Be a great addition to what McGee is involved with. The band room was mentioned at Griswold. That's in design also. We're hoping to get that done this fall. A little bit about the YMCA daycare that we're planning on putting in McGee and Hubbard. We had been in front of the town council earlier. We've spoken to the board a lot about that. That is going forward. That is now in design. It had to be changed from BHS to McGee and Hubbard. We had a few different places at McGee and Hubbard that we thought were the best places for the daycare. We're now settled on location. We're settled on design, and we're going to be moving forward to get that construction done and put out the bid. The Transition Academy, we talked about a big thing for our operations. It's going to be moving into and expanding. It's already, actually, I should say, it has operated there for a few years in a smaller capacity. It's going to be expanded with the great activity of Linda and her staff to put this together. But we have now completed the lease. We are going to be operating there, starting in a facility that's going to be renovated a little bit. Didn't need that much renovation, but it's going to be just great for what we're planning. So we're all set to go ahead this year. Lastly, just to mention to the board, the BHS closeout, which we were involved with earlier this year. The town council just approved engaging Gilbane Construction to help them put together all the construction documents, the closeout documents. They were involved in the project to begin with. So they're back in now getting ready to do the closeout and getting it to audit. And at that point, I know the town is expecting some money returned, which is a great thing. And just lastly, if you get a chance to go over to the Berlin Board of Education offices, we have done some renovations there. It needed it for years and years. The last few superintendents wanted to do that. We had the ability and the capacity to do some things this year, and with the help of a lot of people and the help of some staff, it looks really great. It's been refurbished. It looks like a new place. We're going to have some new furniture in there. We do use it a lot. Town offices sometimes use it also, so we're very, very proud of that. So if you get a chance to take a look. And other than that, that's, I think, about all the comments I need to give. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Do any board members have questions for Mr. Cogno? Comments? Very detailed report. All right, thank you. We're moving on to the staffing update.
Thank you very much. One of the most important things we do is who we hire each year in the district. And I can only commend the administrative staff for putting together hiring committees and going out and finding the best and brightest candidates. Something that's always been proud in Berlin is that we really look for the best candidate, regardless of experience. It's who's best at that time and who would make the biggest impact on our students. And it often shows in the new teachers' orientation how proud and pleased candidates are to be attaining a job in Berlin. And I think that's a credit to the community and the reputation. We're very fortunate to have 34 new employees. Of that, 18 are new teachers in the district, 10 new paras, and new clerical, 2 half-time or part-time clerical help in the district. So with that being said, you saw that when you walked in this evening, what we did at Convocation is we post all of the new certified staff, and we had that scrolling as you walked in to give you an idea. I'm not going to read through every new position that we have hired for this year, but I think as the community welcomes in these new teachers, I think they'll see that we've hired some wonderful people that will be making a huge impact on our students. And some of the funding for this, I must say, is falling under either the ESSER grant or one of the grants for the staffing. We recognize that those grants have a 2-year window, but some of them were put in for that reason. And then looking at a little recovery and acceleration of students this year based on what's transpired for the last almost year and a half. So we're very fortunate, and we look forward to the new staff.
Thank you. I know some board members and myself attended the first day of teacher orientation, and it was nice to walk around and meet some of the new teachers. And we welcome all the new employees to Berlin Public Schools. We're excited to have you. Does anyone on the board have anything they would like to add or comment to that? All right, so we are moving on to our final financial report. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Dorsey.
Hello. Before we get started, I just want to clarify something in Mr. Cogno's report. It was the McGee Gymnasium that was renovated, not the McGee Auditorium, just in case you were confused about that. So fiscal year 21 was not without its challenges. The beginning of the school year required many unbudgeted expenses. Fortunately, the district had choice funds available to purchase PPE supplies and equipment to prioritize health and safety of our students and staff. The district received multiple grant funds, including ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and the Corona Relief Funds, allowing the district to maintain continuity and safety throughout extra staffing, technology purchases, and other supplies. The pandemic also allowed for substantial savings. Savings in athletics, substitutes, and transportation provided funding for building improvement projects, the lighting the lighting renovation at McGee, repaving of Willard, storage units for Hubbard, and repaving of the McGee front entrance, and additional funding for the rooftop units. Additional savings also related to special education transportation allowed the district to return $400,000 back to the town. Despite the challenges, we ended the year with a balance of $408,311.05. This amount includes the $400 returned to the town and $8,311.05 for final adjustments.
All right, do any board members have any questions in regards to this report? Thank you so much. So we're moving to the next part of our agenda, which is policy review and revision. We have a number of policies on here tonight. We have the first reading of 3324.1, Code of Conduct Governing Procurements under a Federal Award, revised policy 3323 under purchasing, a second reading and adoption for new policy 7551, naming of a facility, new construction, new policy 1181, naming and renaming of school buildings, components of buildings and/or school grounds, and policy 5141.4, reports of suspected abuse and/or sexual assault response policy and reporting procedures. So I'm going to turn this over to either Mr. Oakes or Superintendent Benigni, because they were on the ad hoc policy. Do you have anything you'd like to, do you want to give an overview of the policies, or do you have anything you'd like to add?
I will defer to you, sir, because I think the second readings I was actually out of town when those were discussed in detail.
The first one, the Code of Conduct Governing Procurement under Federal Award. The review of this policy is that we are audited every year, and based on the feedback that we've received from the auditors, and speaking with our business director, Ashley Dorsey, those were changes that we looked to Shipman and Goodman to give us model policies and make adjustments as to meet the auditor's needs. So that first policy just needs an update from where we were before. And as many of you are aware, the grants that we're receiving today are much different than what we've received in the past due to the pandemic, and the accounting for it needs to adjust to meet the auditor's needs. So it's a way of documenting what's purchased and how it's purchased. The purchasing, the second part there, the purchasing, there's requirements under each purchasing policy of what can be spent without approval, what has to go out to bid, when those bids should go out. There is a statement that allows the superintendent to waive the bidding process. That is not something that we like to do. I spoke earlier about the Griswold Music Room. The issue was that oftentimes we work with the town, and if the town supplements some of the work and we can hire a contractor and it doesn't go over $10,000, it doesn't need to go out to bid. This policy firms that up and puts dollar limits on each on what should go out to bid and what shouldn't. And the whole idea behind it is that there's a fairness of play when you're awarding bids and you're putting things out to bid, that you're not giving it to the same contractor and being used. So having this policy behind it will only support it. And you know, we did look at the numbers and what should be in each portion of it.
Okay, and anything else that either of you want to add in regards to any of these policies, or is that okay? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that the board adopt new policy 7551, naming of facility new construction, new policy 1181, naming or renaming of school buildings, components of buildings and/or school grounds, and revised policy 5141.4, reports of suspected abuse and/or sexual assault response policy and reporting procedures as presented.
Do we have a second? Second by Prusen, heard him first. Any discussion from the board?
Just for sake of clarity, we talked about the purchasing policy and the code of conduct governing procurements under a federal award. Those were first readings, and that's why those are not included in this motion. We'll talk about those in September.
Thank you for clarifying. Anything else from the board? All right, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 8-0. All right, so now I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Benigni to share the update of the 2021-2022 reopening mitigation plan with the Board of Education for our approval. And I'm sure the board will have plenty of questions about this.
So the updated, we called it opening/mitigation plan, is a much abridged and a different format than what our document was last year and the draft that we put up. And someone said, why was it so much different than the draft? Because we knew that each week I'm involved in multiple meetings and things were changing. So to put a draft up and then redo the draft and redo the draft, the thought was we put a draft up of what we thought at the time, and then we shifted and looked at the opening/mitigation strategies. So what you have there in that 3-page document is you have things done in a chart format that hopefully becomes much more user-friendly to parents and staff and even students to reference things such as quarantine time, should you be in contact with someone who's positive, you know, whether desk shields are being used. It's very easy to reference. Being that it is fluid with COVID and things are changing all the time, the need to update the reopening and mitigation plan may change as hopefully the numbers decrease. There may be a loosening, or if need be, there may be a tightening of the plan. A plan in this format is much easier to update, and I think it's much more user-friendly to the parents reading it. It's been posted on the website. I sent a letter home to all parents last week with a copy, with a link to the reopening plan. I've not received any negative or positive feedback from parents regarding the plan at this point. I knew that I was receiving emails and phone calls. When will the plan be released? What's it going to look like? And so on. And as there's pieces that aren't even in the plan, such as that will need to be in the plan moving forward as things are released by the State Department of Ed. But at this time, opening up school tomorrow, I think that plan does a good job of documenting what's necessary and allows parents to see what school is going to look like. As the parent noted today about the no shields and so on, all of that is documented in the plan. So, I look for any feedback from the board and welcome it.
Yes, go ahead.
Superintendent, if you could maybe expand and elaborate on the section for mask breaks. That's been a question that's been asked many times by parents, and it doesn't really represent in the plan what those are and if they can be taken at will or scheduled. So if you could elaborate on that for the parents,
Sure.
I'd appreciate it.
Yep, as a district, the position is that any student can take a mask break when they deem necessary. So a student says, I need a mask break, you get the mask break. It's not questioned, it shouldn't be questioned by any teacher, and that's been the position. We've talked about it as administrative group. The elementary will be drafting or has drafted to parents some guidelines about mask breaks. We're looking at the classroom to say, is there the ability for half the class to be like Group A? You can take a mask break because you're socially distanced from Group B. Every classroom is set up a little different. We're not telling teachers this year, because it's not recommended by the CDC, that every desk has to be lined up in a certain row. We're letting teachers have some autonomy in setting up the room as long as they're meeting that at least 3 feet requirement for distancing. So when we talk about mask breaks, there'll be the ability for students to take them as needed. There definitely will be outside activity where students will be allowed to take off their mask at the elementary level. And the teachers will have scheduled mask breaks as well within their class. And as I said, the elementary will be sending out their guidelines, and the secondary school, the middle school and high school will have guidelines also. The parents I've spoken to, and there's been a few, maybe 5 or 6, their concern is just that there is a mask break, and that if students need a mask break, they're able to take it and feel comfortable taking the mask break. And you know, I gave them my assurance, and I told them, if you feel that way and you don't feel comfortable talking to the teacher, please contact the administration. But I don't believe that teachers don't want students to take mask breaks. I think that they recognize that being in a mask all day, because they've been in a mask all day, the students need the break. So I hope that answers the question.
So I have a few questions from someone I was having a conversation with. So how will the principals be enforcing the mask breaks class by class? I know that's kind of a big administrative task, but.
So the elementary school is setting the guidelines that all 3 buildings will be similar. But the guidelines will be that students can take mask breaks when they need it. That's the first. But the second is the teachers are requested to establish some type of protocol within their class that they'll share with administration, so that there's a scheduled mask break that, you know, during this time, you know, like I said, Group A can take their mask off because they're safe. Going outside for recess will be another time, which, you know, to do that. If there's the ability to have the adequate spacing, they'll do it at any time. So as far as checking on it, I don't think it's going to be a question of the administration knowing, they'll know what each teacher's doing, but it's not as though they're going to be asking them to write down when they gave their mask breaks and so on. I think if there's an issue with it, the hope is that students would say something, but teachers have been directed and understand that the importance of the mask break. And we're not holding them to, you know, it's a 90-minute literacy block, so you better not take that extra 10 minutes. You know, our position last year was student safety first, and to treat students as they needed, what they needed, when they needed it. And if it meant that we backed off on some of the curriculum for a portion, that's what took precedence, and that'll remain in place.
Thank you. And has it been messaged, I'm just asking, has it been messaged from the building principals to the teachers if, you know, it's a nice day and they can do their class activity outside? Is this something that we're encouraging?
Absolutely. I know that at 2 of the schools, they've created outside socialization and learning space, and I know that all the principals welcome the students being outside for learning activities if teachers are willing. You know, that's totally up to the teacher. I don't know a principal that's going to say, no, you can't take your class out for reading, or you can't go sit under the tree and have your reading instruction done out there. That type of diverse learning environment is welcome.
Okay, and then last 2. So when should parents receive the correspondence? And I know you already stated, if a parent isn't happy with the policy, they go to the building principal?
No, if a parent's not happy with the policy, they could talk to the principal. But if Johnny's attending class and he's coming home saying, I have my mask on too long, to me, if the parent's not comfortable contacting the teacher directly, then it's simply to contact the building principal and say, hey, my son is in such class, I'm concerned about the mask breaks. The principal will know what types of mask breaks are going on in that class because the teacher's established a protocol for it. And then can you let the teacher know that there's a concern, or maybe we got to relook at the protocol that's established. But, you know, and I can ask, I know we have elementary principals here. I know you spoke with your faculty this week. Would any of you be willing to share if the notice is going home about mask breaks or what was shared? Al, would you mind coming up and speaking? You okay with that?
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I know the 3 elementary schools are aligned because we spoke about it.
I just want to make sure that the parents who are watching tonight, they know what to do, you know, and they know what to expect.
Principal, Hubbard School, I don't need this.
Okay.
Just to start, just respectfully,
From the streaming, yeah.
where I have to speak in the mic, no problem. So just to give some context, last year, in a more restrictive environment, we navigated this with numerous mask breaks. So everything that we're speaking about today, we've done for a year. We've found ways to get creative, give kids mask breaks in every aspect of their school day. Classrooms, hallways, recess, lunch, whatever the capacity is, the trust that we put in staff to get creative and make sure kids had that social emotional connection, the connection to their peers, the connection to their school experience, and to achieve that by giving them a sense of normalcy through mask breaks, that was done very, very successfully. The program that Berlin put together in concert with the board, the trust they put in the teachers and what was delivered could stand up against anyone in the state, what was done. And I just say that, I'm just talking about what was done. So I have supreme confidence at the elementary level as far as the communication that's going to happen across our buildings in articulating the mask breaks in a manner that's respectful to wherever you stand on the issue, and we'll be able to meet those pieces in the appropriate way. We'll make sure everybody is absolutely safe. We'll make sure we're following the rules, but we'll also make sure that we understand your children have 1 year in the grade they're at this year. We need to make that the best year possible. All of that will be taken care of. It'll be fine.
Do any other board members have any questions? I asked all of mine.
I think it would be probably appropriate to have a motion first, and then we can continue discussion.
Oh, yes.
So I'll make a motion to
Thank you.
approve the 2021-2022 reopening mitigation plan as presented.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Second by, motion by Adam, second by Jamie. Now we can open it back up for discussion. Thank you.
Julia?
Yes.
Just because, a couple things. Number one, I first want to apologize for missing the meeting in July. I was actually away on vacation, and I was disheartened to hear some of the comments and some of the directions that meeting took, because I think that looking at this mitigation plan, listening to staff, listening to the administrators, listening to Mr. Souza just now, without a doubt, in speaking with people from other districts, other towns around the state of Connecticut, Berlin had the best process, best policy, best schedule that I heard from anybody. We were one-to-one with technology, didn't miss a beat. There are districts out there, you'd be shocked. We're scrambling, trying to get computers, trying to get devices for children. We had Zoom cameras in the classroom. Kids were not going home for a week with a binder full of homework to say, here, get it done. We had a great policy, and I wish I was here in July to commend and congratulate the administration, the teachers, the staff, the custodians, the food service workers, the bus drivers, everybody that was involved to make that year an incredible year. And we should have been celebrating it in July as we began the year, and instead we are getting criticized, I guess, for other things. And now that did carry over a little to this meeting, but I will say again, I've got 3 daughters that cannot wait to begin school tomorrow. And they, mask or no mask, I think they just want to be in school. And if that's what it takes, that's what they're going to do. But it takes a tremendous amount of effort throughout the entire year. It's hard enough to be in education during a normal year. I can't imagine how it was for all of you this past 18 months now. So I'm looking at this mitigation plan. It looks extremely reasonable. I think, as Brian mentioned before too, it's going to adjust. As each month that goes by, an executive order runs out at the end of September. We may have a different policy with masks at that point. I think like anything else, we're gonna look at the data, look at what's going on within our own school district, but I think we've taken a very common sense approach to it last year as well as this year. I just wanted to say thank you, because it's been an outstanding experience for my own daughters, and they'll be finishing up pretty soon. So, I've got one who's going to be a senior, and like I said, mask or no mask, has her senior t-shirt all made. She's ready to go to school, and looking forward to a great year, both in the classroom as well as on the fields for all the extracurriculars. So thank you to Brian and the entire staff of Berlin.
Thank you, Adam. Does anyone else on the board have any comments that they would like to make? Questions? No one? All right, well, thank you to the superintendent and all the administration for putting this together. I know it's gone through several revisions, and we're, walking through uncharted territory right now that no one really has ever gone through. So thank you for putting the time into this. So now we're going to move to a vote. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. All right, now we're going to move on to the Equity and Social Justice Committee. We don't have a motion for this, but at our July 12th board meeting, it was decided that we would decide the structure. We needed you to come back with some more questions and discuss next steps. So there were several questions brought up in regards to the structure, the function, and the next steps. So after consulting with our lawyer at Shipman and Goodwin, we were made aware and advised that any committee that involves community members is actually a committee of the board. Moving forward, we will follow the same structure of any board subcommittee. When the previous board chair charged this committee, I will say whether he was aware or not, this became a committee of the board. So thank you for those who brought the questions forward. We found out the answer. But due to our lack of experience with adding an additional advisory committee, we were unaware. So, we found the answer to that. So Superintendent Benigni, I would like you to look at the committee structure, effectiveness, the positives and negatives that have come out of the meetings, and find a way to ensure transparency, and please report back to our next meeting. Okay, does anyone else have anything they would like to add? I know a lot of people came out to speak on behalf of the committee this evening. It seems like we have some really passionate people involved. Does anyone else want to comment? Okay, so just one other question. Has the curriculum changed as a result of the committee?
There's been no curriculum changes that have been noted that have been changed because of the committee. It does not mean that teachers aren't talking about curriculum changes, but any changes that we have in the curriculum or updates are always posted in Atlas, and we've used Atlas for the last probably 16 years, and there is that link on the website that has a link to the curriculum that's open to the public. So we do make curriculum revisions, but as the original statement stated, that the advisory committee will make recommendations to the superintendent to change district policies and procedures related to equity practices. So at this point, there's nothing brought to me to make changes on a wide scale decision. So with your charge, I will go back and ensure that there is transparency, that the meetings are following the correct format, and draft goals that then the board can then look at and adjust and decide.
Yeah, and I think, with my background in education, I do just want to say educational equality is not about the color of someone's skin or catering to a subgroup of a community. However, our community is ever changing, but educational equality is often a word that comes up frequently. And it's funny because at my part-time job at Live Nation, I was having this conversation with my boss last weekend, and he's like, stop it with the word equity, and he's just like, I don't understand it. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what equity is. I understand the social justice component and equity. I understand some of the work that was going into it, but I think it's important that we as a community value that we do have a diverse community of learners. The equitable learning falls under the federal regulations for education. We need to make sure that our learning environment is equitable for all, whether that's, ADA, IDEA, special education, 504, IEP. These are all different, educational terms. So, we are required by law to make an equitable learning environment, and there are people within the community who are incredibly passionate about doing that work. However, on the flip side, there's been questions brought forth by the Board of Education, and we do need transparency and we need more information. So with the charge, if you could report back at the next meeting, like I said, with the structure, effectiveness, positive, negatives, and ways to ensure transparency. And then we as a board can move forward with more discussion about shaping that so we can, make sure we're meeting the needs of the learners within our community. Anyone else on the board have anything they would like to add to that? Okay, so before we go into executive session, I do just want to wrap up and just say that everything we do here for Board of Education comes down to the children of Berlin. We put them at the forefront. And though a lot of people in the community are torn right now, and we may agree or disagree or hate the masks, we are just trying to keep schools open, keep schools safe, and have children learning. Thank you guys so much for your participation this evening, and I want to encourage you to continue to come out and share your voices with us, just in a positive, respectful way. So now we're moving to the last item agenda, and we need a motion to enter into executive session with just the superintendent, correct? Yes. Okay.
I will move to enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter or matters, inviting the superintendent with us.
Motion by Tim Oak, second by Mark Prusen. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? 8-0. We will be coming back after executive session to close out the meeting, but there's no more business on the agenda. Thank you.
Well, we made it to June. This was the year of figuring out how to make it happen despite the challenges of a worldwide pandemic. We were fortunate to offer all students the opportunity to return to school full-time at the end of March, leading to a full spring sports season, an outdoor musical, concerts, prom, upbeat weekend, senior outing, and a much anticipated Spirit Week. One of the things that is really special about Berlin High School is the commitment to time-honored traditions, particularly those that demonstrate our Redcoat pride. A few weeks ago, we celebrated Spirit Week, which culminated in the infamous and fiercely competitive hallway decorating. Take a look as you pass go and collect $200, make your way to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, find yourself swimming with the sharks, or just dance. The coveted title for Best Hallway was on the line. Judge for yourself.
So the freshman hallway theme is WandaVision, and it features everything from each of the 6 decades, I believe. So we have split them up into the 50s and 60s, the 70s, 80s, and the 90s and 2000s. So some of the main features are, in the 50s and 60s, are popping out. It's black and white, so most of it is dull, but some of the features are in red. So, and then from then on, most of it is red. One of the great things about the hallways is that you can, people come together as like a group, and it's a great team working exercise, and you get to learn more about people and just like your classmates in general.
So our hallway is Jaws, and we focus on the theme about surviving the waters. Some key components of our hallway are our Jaws cutout. We also have the movie poster, and we also have a shark cage where we will have a scuba diver in it. The great thing about it is that it's a really good way for the class to come together and to just work on a group project. Our hallway also includes all the classmates' names on them, and the class really comes together, and we just bond in a whole nother level because we're just stressing and going through it for like 3 weeks, and then when it comes together, we're really proud of it, and it really is a great class bonding experience.
So what we're doing this year, we're doing Wii, and we chose really the 3 iconic games or sections of games that we all played in our childhood. So the far end of the hallway, we're gonna have Wii Sports, and then the middle section is gonna be Nintendo with your Mario and your Sonic and characters like that. And then in this final section here, we're gonna have Just Dance, featuring a dance lighting that's being worked on behind me right now, along with large-scale characters and black lights and a bunch of fun stuff like that. So I really feel the best thing that comes out of doing these Spirit Week hallways is the camaraderie and the bonds that we make as a class. Because even if it's only 10 kids coming throughout the 3 weeks leading up, on setup night, we're always having so many kids coming, contributing, giving their ideas to the hallway, and it really unifies us together as a class, especially now during COVID when we're all just starting to fully get back together again. It's a really nice way to really kick things off well and end the school year strong.
So the class of 2021 decided to choose Blacklight Monopoly as our theme, and originally we saw a Monopoly Silverline version of the Monopoly board, and the board is black, so we were like, this could really work for our hallway. And we merged it with the original Monopoly and added the element of blacklight to it to really enforce the theme of black, because that's our class color. If you look in our hallway, we have things such as chance cards and community chest cards. And for one of the chance cards, we have chance lose your junior prom, because we did lose our junior prom. And we just like making jokes out of the things that happened to us. And we also have little callbacks to our other hallways. So we have the Queen of Hearts in here for Go to Jail. We have Stitch in here for In Jail Just Visiting. We have the Ghostbusters car for free parking, because those were themes that we did in our 3 previous years. And we just wanted to make it an immersive experience and very memorable for our class in this unique year. So the great thing about hallways every year is just different people in the class coming together to work on this one amazing thing. It sounds cheesy, but we really do unite during this whole time. For the 1 month or 2 months that you're working on this, you talk to so many other people you wouldn't talk to in your regular classes, and you just have this final end product that you're all so proud of and you can look at and smile back on.
Impressive? You bet. Purpose, passion, pride, creativity, and teamwork were at their peak as classmates came together for some of the best hallways yet. We are thrilled to end the school year doing some of the things that bring our student community together. Thank you for joining us for this final installment of Making It Happen. See you next year.
Hi, my name is Lena and I'll be talking about how planting helped our class and the Griswold community. By starting this project, our class was able to learn about different plants, how to plant, how to care for plants, and what supplies would be needed to get started. We signed up for jobs in small groups and worked together to complete our own research, draft letters, and use Google Slides to create presentations. We reached out to administrators and then created a bulletin board displaying our knowledge for the rest of the school to view. We did this so the other grade levels, students and teachers would know how to get started. After we grow the vegetables, we are hoping to donate them to the Brown community members who are in need, or perhaps the Brown Food Pantry. My classmates will talk to you about the different stages of this project and more information.
Hi, I'm Logan, and I'm going to be talking about what supplies we needed to start this gardening project. First, me and some other classmates researched the price of the tools that we needed. We checked different places so we could find the best price. Then we needed to measure the length, the width, and the height of the bed so we could figure out how much soil we needed.
Hi, I'm Alexander, and I'm going to talk to you about the bulletin board we created. We chose to do 3 different sections, which includes where to know, how to compost, and tips and tricks for planting. The reason why we made this bulletin board is because we want to inform other students and teachers in the building who might be new to planting about words and things they should know if they're going to start a garden. That way they'll all have a green thumb.
Hello, I'm Genevieve Kozak. I took part in the letter writing process asking for possible donations for our garden. My classmates and I wrote a letter to Blue Earth, a composting company. We got to discover a lot about how to write an official letter by doing this project. Now for a Zoom experience with Blue Earth. We first learned about the company itself, then the history. Next, Alex, the owner of the company, told us about how to compost, what to compost, and what not to, and the perfect conditions for composting. We learned that many of the state's incinerators are not only bad for the environment, but are located in low-income, high-minority areas. Composting can reduce the amount of incinerators in all states and help keep our environment clean. Thanks to Alex and Blue Earth, we are ready to try our own composting here at Griswold School.
Hi, I'm Cade. I'm going to talk about the different garden beds we have here at Griswold. We have 2 different gardens here, the vegetable garden and the butterfly garden. Now there are 6 different beds chosen by 6 different groups of teachers and students. Each of those 6 groups picked out what vegetables they wanted to plant. Once the vegetables are fully grown, we will then take turns harvesting what we grew. We also have a butterfly garden that our class has been maintaining. The purpose of the garden is to attract pollinators who pollinate the flower, because who doesn't love honey? We need to research what flowers could tolerate intense sun and heat, and which flowers needed shade or partial shade. And that's how we determined which flowers were planted in each bed.
Hi, I'm Evan.
And I'm Daniel.
To prep the garden beds, first we weeded them. Then we turned the soil. After that, we transplanted flowers from the beds directly into the ground. We had to be careful not to disrupt the roots. Finally, we chose cool weather crops to plant in our beds. Right now, we have beets and lettuce growing in our bed. We planted certain flowers and vegetables in solo cups because the seeds should be started indoors. All of these plants will grow in solo cups until it's time, which means the weather is warmer and they will be transplanted to the beds.
Hi, I'm Miss Spinella and I teach this 5th grade group of children. When I first introduced the project to them, I was thrilled to see how excited, motivated they were, but also how they took ownership over the project. It was great to see them make curriculum connections to what we've been learning all year long. Everything from social studies in the Colonial America unit to math in the volume to our current science unit, which is on decomposition. Beyond the curriculum, it was great to see the kids problem solve, work together as a team, communicate with one another, and use technology. I'm thrilled that the children are able to leave behind something for the future grades who are going to be coming up to them. And I think it'll be a great way for them to say goodbye to Griswold School and leave their footprint.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Willard Snapshot. Our feature will be the pre-K program. Willard is the only elementary school with a pre-K program. Here to tell you more about it is Dr. Michelle Joyschner, the Special Education Supervisor for the elementary schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Sorois. The Berlin Preschool is an integrated program. It provides special education services to students beginning at age 3. Each classroom is made up of special education students and same age peers. The classrooms participate in PE and music each week. Within our program, we also have a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, and a physical therapist that work with our students. I hope you enjoy your peek inside our preschool program.
Playing basketball and playing with my friends on the play skate. My favorite part about preschool is gym. My favorite part is playing with my friends. And playing with my friends.
I enjoy teaching preschool because it's so rewarding. I love that I'm able to teach in an entertaining, creative way. I try to make my classroom fun and motivating for my little ones. If they love school, then they will love to learn. It is such a great feeling knowing I am their first experience in school, the foundation to their education. And it's also so special that I get to experience groundbreaking moments with them. Finally, I want to say that I love teaching preschoolers because they just warm my heart. They are so honest, innocent, kind, and funny. You never know what will come out of their mouths. It is the best job ever.
The thing I enjoy most about teaching pre-K students is just being with them because they are so funny, they keep us on our toes, and they make us laugh all the time. And I also love that we get to experience so many of their firsts. For a lot of them, it's the first time coming to school and leaving their families for an extended period of time. And it might be the first time they write their name or experience a seed growing and blossoming into a flower. And we get to celebrate with them all their accomplishments and so many of their firsts, and it's very rewarding. Let's see, what I enjoy most about the pre-K students is that they make every day fun. Every day is a new adventure and you learn something from them, they learn something from you. It's just really fun experience to be in preschool. Our program is special, I think, mostly because we all work so well together as a team. From parents, paraprofessionals, teachers, related service staff, we all work so closely together. The preschool program at Willard School is so special because it's a great diverse community, and there's lots of different learning styles happening in the room, and the children learn to show empathy and be kind to others and learn from each other, and there's nothing better than when children learn from each other.
I think what makes our program so special is our interdisciplinary approach. I am so fortunate that I get to collaborate and teach with a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, and a physical therapist every day in my classroom. And we work very closely with the parents at home as well. It's a great program.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Willard Snapshot. Until next time, stay safe and be well.
For those of you that aren't familiar
All right, at 7:50, we are out of executive session. Do we have, wait, we need a motion for consideration?
Yeah, I'm ready. Ready? Move to approve the tentative agreement reached between the Berlin Board of Education and UPSEU Local 424, Unit 40, food service employees for a period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2024.
I'll second. So motion by Adam, second by Jamie. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. Do we have a motion for consideration for the food service supervisors?
Move to approve the tentative agreement reached between the Berlin Board of Education and UPSEU Local 424, Unit 57, food service supervisors for a period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2024.
I'll second. Motion by Adam, second by Jamie. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 8-0. For the paraprofessionals, do we have a motion for consideration?
Move to approve the tentative agreement reached between the Berlin Board of Education and Local 1303-276 of Council 4 ASME AFL-CIO paraprofessionals for a period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2024.
I'll second. Motion by Adam, second by Jamie. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0. And administrators, do we have a motion for consideration?
Move to approve a tentative agreement reached between the Berlin Board of Education and the Association of Berlin Administrators for a period of July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2025.
I'll second. So motion by Adam, second by Jamie. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8-0. We have one final. I'll move to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second. So motion by Jamie, second by Jenkins. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0, 7:53.
I'm so glad this day is over.
Nice job. Good work, guys.